Angela Madigan, principal at Waterboro Elementary School. If you see the map here, we're in southern Maine. We have about 8,000 in our three towns that make up Waterboro, East Waterboro, North Waterboro, and Waterboro, with about 60 square miles of land. Um, a unique consideration for our area, as was said earlier, that rural areas aren't all the same, they're very different. Um, in our area, back in the 70s, we have a lot of lakes, and we had a large developer come in and build all kinds of housing, thinking this was going to be a resort community, a place to get away. And then the money disappeared and everything kind of fell apart. So we were left with a large community of housing that was unfinished and cheap. So it brought in a certain population into our area. Um, with that population is a lot of transiency, poverty, and all of those things that really affect our school and do in many rural communities. So that's a little idiosyncrasy of our community that we have to constantly consider as we do our work. Um, we also have close to 50% free or reduced lunch beneficiaries. Um, Back in 2015, we started our partnership with Susan Lieberman and Count Me In. We had a great team, and our school itself was just going through a change in leadership. New things were happening, we were moving forward. This new initiative felt very uncomfortable at first for a lot of teachers. They still had that mindset of punitive, of truancy, of it's not my job to ask about attendance, to connect with families. That's the administrators or the counselors' roles. Um, so that was our first barrier, and really getting teachers to warm up to the fact that we were not having them check in on attendance. What we were doing is asking them to build relationships with families. And even that was a struggle because they didn't know how. So we had to go back to the basics and actually teach them how to build relationships with families. It's a phone call, it's an email, it's something positive. If you're noticing that Johnny was out a couple of days last week, let's pick up the phone and just say, hey, we miss Johnny here at school. How are things going? Just making that connection will start to build the relationship. And a lot of teachers still struggled. So we created some scripts that they could use when they were on the phone to have some sentence starters and get them comfortable. We had modeling, we had counselors sit with them and do it with them. So building those really positive, powerful relationships was our first step. It took off when teachers started talking to each other about what they found out. Um, one teacher would go down the hall and say, oh my goodness, remember little Johnny was out 2 days last week. I found out something really important about his family, and now he's going to be in school, and we're able to get over that hump, and we've made this connection. And a teacher would hear that and say, oh, well, I wonder if little Susie has something going on. And then they might make the connection. So really sharing those positive personal stories that were happening within the school organically built up that culture in our school. Another thing we did is create the attendance teams that Susan spoke to. We have attendance teams that pull data, that pull students who are chronically absent, truant, and approaching chronically absent, so that we have various stages or tiers of interventions we can do for those students. That team is made up of our counselor, nurse, administrator, and representatives from grade levels who are the liaisons who go back and forth to bring that information to their team, and which students need to have that connection, and what do we know about that family? How can we help that family? Another thing that the team did with that data is create an infographic. And that infographic was used in a staff meeting to show them the results. Like, this is the data, this is it, the proof is in the pudding, you are making a difference. And we took the student name off, but we chose students from various grade levels. This one happened to be third grade. And the interesting thing about this one, why I chose this one to highlight, is it's not just absent. This one happens to be tardies. So we looked at total time away from school, and not just complete days or whole days. Um, and looking at these students and their growth in academics and their growth in participation and engagement and emotional and social health was just powerful for our staff. And it was a real turning point for them to say, okay, we're all in, we're going to do this. They saw the data, they saw it was working, and we had that culture shift where they knew that relationships mattered. They knew that it was their job, and they knew that families are the foundation for our students' well-being and access to learning here at school. So we have gone from 2015, almost 9% chronically absent students, down to about 3.1 in 2018, 2019. So we have seen the results. We'll get into what it looks like now, but they are really just reaching out, and that community that is all built in that little idiosyncrasy I talked about earlier, they are telling each other how Waterboro supports them and how they give them resources and how they're supporting their needs and getting their kids what they need and helping their families as a whole family. So leveraging that strong sense of community was another really big piece that we nailed down to create those powerful positive relationships at Waterboro.